is money.
It's nothing.
Ballin', ballin'.
Alakwa.
Premium or nothing.
When them or nothing.
Now you know.
Now you know.
Now you know.
Now you know.
Hey. Forget what they know, yeah, yeah. Ayagaya.
Iba. Apa.
Ayagaya.
Come on. Iba.
Ayagaya.
Iba. Apa.
Ayagaya.
Iba.
Ayagaya.
Iba.
Ayagaya.
Apa.
Ayagaya.
Iba.
Ayagaya.
Come on.
Ayagaya.
Welcome back. We are back and we are on the couch. We have a guest on the couch.
We do.
So before, I introduce our guest, let's do a check-in.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's do a check-in, and I'm going to change the check-in around what is one thing this week that challenged you, and what did you notice about yourself this week that you want to be intentional about for the upcoming week? So one thing that challenged you, and something that you going to be intentional about in the upcoming week.
Okay.
So I'm going to give a few.
I think I can start.
Okay,
I was challenged by my lack of motivation or desire to go to the physical gym today. I mean, this week, I just had a hard time getting my mind around physically leaving my house. I was able instead to get some solid feet movement or solid steps, on my walking pad. So that was my way of making it work. But I did notice having a challenge of physically going to the gym and doing that was something I just wasn't feeling this week. And something that I'm going to be more intentional about is meeting myself in the middle, right? I do notice that strength training is really important to me. I feel good, not only through the exercise of pushing and pulling weight and all of that thing just makes me feel good. I also feel good about myself after, and also my body looks good after. So it's I like doing those things, but if I don't feel like going to the gym, I have weights. I also have this lovely thing called YouTube, and I have several people on there that will kick my ass through a workout, right? So I can still do that even though I don't physically want to go to the gym for whatever reason. So that's my way of meeting myself in the middle next week.
Yeah, and it sounds like you value your physical wellness and your well-being, and it's a way of restoring you. Yeah. And what do you think decreased your motivation this week around the commitment?
Honestly, I'm not really sure. It could be what's called around that time of the month. I just feel a lower everything, right? I don't really feel pushing myself. My cravings are a lot higher and things of that nature. So it's always a balancing act around this time, being able to listen to my body while also giving my body what I know it needs, for later, what will make me feel better in the long term versus sometimes just giving me what I want in the short term.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right.
I can share. So what was the challenge?
Yeah. What challenged you this week?
I think I really struggled with communication this week. Feeling there was things that I needed to say, but really struggling with language, how to express, what is my energy to even have more of a conflict or a back and forth. And so I definitely noticed feeling I don't want to use the word silenced because I didn't feel physically silenced, but I felt
nonverbal, as the kids will say.
I felt like I just
or it could be
wanted
reserved. Sometimes reserving.
Yeah. Then I was doing some reading. I'm my throat chakra is closed off this week, I guess. But so that was a challenge. I think the thing that I'm going to be intentional about moving forward, and this is something that I probably want to be intentional about far beyond just this week. Saying the things, being open to just say what it is that I'm feeling, and not doing my calculation of how's this going to come off, how's the person going to feel, just saying the things and going from there.
When did you notice though throughout the week that you were struggling with communicating, when you were deciding to shut down and not really say much?
I noticed early on in the week I just didn't have much to say. I was kind of waking up and not wanting to get into my usual communication. I think I can sometimes be like that anyway.
Yeah.
My partner's a Libra, and she be waking up on 10, like ready for conversation in the morning. And I still need a little bit of like thaw out. Like I need time. I'm not ready quite yet to communicate yet. I just want to like
And if
be
you-
in the
yeah.
presence.
And if you kind of forced to, you push yourself to, do you feel like it throws your day off, or you just want to quiet down a little bit more, or?
I think that sometimes I won't push through, but I'm also not communicating that it is just not a morning for me to talk.
Got you.
So I think that can sometimes come off to other people as dismissive.
Got you. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ty.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guess DJ. What is something that challenged you, DJ, this week?
So challenges. The first thing that came to mind was yesterday. I had an unexpected thing happen. So what I've been doing lately is trying to be more in just flow and just following my
Yeah.
intuition. So
Yeah.
yesterday, I felt like I just didn't feel like being at my desk. I work from home, and so I was kind of playing hooky from work. And so someone just told me to like go get some coffee at this spot that I really like. And so I went out there, and then I felt like, oh, well, I'll just stop at the mall because I have this thing going on this weekend. Maybe I could get something, something for tomorrow and stuff like that. So, the morning is going well. I'm like, cool, I'm happy I followed my intuition. Go back to my car, and I'm like driving, and I see the indicator for my tire pop up on the dash. I'm like, the hell? I'm like, oh, okay, this must be bad. You know what I'm saying? Because, the weather's colder. So,
Yeah,
sometimes you get
yeah.
but this was like the major one. So I pulled over, and I park. Get outside and I look, and my tire is completely flat.
Oh, wow.
And like it's crazy because how I parked, I saw the screw or the nail directly in it, and it was huge. And I was like, crap, right?
You can say fuck, because
So
I would
like,
say
damn.
fuck.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
I
I
was
don't know if I
like,
can say that on
No,
here.
you can't.
Yeah.
Because we would say the
Yeah.
same thing.
So it's completely unexpected, and I'm like, well, damn, God, like
What is
I was
it?
following my intuition. Like, why did this happen, right? And it's just like, so, I'm trying to get a tow and things like that because, these cars these days, they don't come with spares anymore.
They
come
don't.
with a pump. You
Which
know what
is
I'm saying?
crazy, right?
Not
Wild,
really. I
super
mean,
wild. That in of itself.
That's just part of the capitalism.
Right,
So,
Right.
so fun.
So I'm like, I can't even like help myself out. And put
Yeah.
this together,
Right.
So I
Yeah.
gotta get it towed. So I'm like, all right, cool, bet. So anyway, I tried to go through my insurance provider to get a tow, and they were just taking forever because that's a whole thing. So I just ended up saying, like, you know what, I'll just get reimbursed. So I found a local tow company, got my car taken care of, thinking it would be just a quick patch at a local tire shop that had good reviews.
You had to change the whole thing, didn't you?
Yeah, so I had to do a whole tire, which wasn't a big deal. I was prepared
Okay.
to do that. But then they're like, oh, there's an issue with the other tire on the backside as well. So it was just an unexpected thing, and I wasn't prepared for it. So you know what I'm saying? So it was
Yeah.
just like, I went from having this great morning to things not really going my way. And so that was challenging because I'm like, well, damn, am I being punished, right? This is what the ego does. Am I being punished? Like, maybe I wasn't supposed to leave the house. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe I didn't follow the right path. But I realized that, like, yo, everything went exactly how it was supposed to go.
Right.
And luckily, I had everything that I needed to take care of this expense, thank
Exactly.
God. And so it was just about being in gratitude. So, what that taught me, I think, in the moment was, like, life is always going to be full of challenges and things aren't going to go your way. You know what I'm saying? But it's just how you receive it, how you move through it. Are you able to be in gratitude no matter if things don't go the way that you want or
Not you
expect?
dropping gems already, DJ. Slow down now. Slow down now.
But
I
also,
got some
I
people
think,
get to know you
but
first.
honestly,
Right.
on top of that, though, that part is that maybe you were supposed to do that because didn't you say you were
Exactly.
supposed to go somewhere today? So
Yeah.
can you imagine having that flat tire while you're
It's
out and
big,
about?
exactly.
And
Yeah.
Because I think that same way all the time. I'm always
Yeah.
driving and I'll mess around and miss an exit, and I'm used to always be like, God damn it, what's wrong with me? Blah, blah. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I had to realize, wait. I'm not supposed to be at that destination quite yet. Maybe
Yes.
there's a reason
That was
why
a-
I'm not supposed to have
Exactly.
Something
been
interceded
there.
from you getting
so
there.
like it's great that you're bringing that thing of like our ego always tries to make sense of why that happened and tends to lean on the negative. I'm being punished. I wasn't supposed to do this thing versus, oh, this was an opportunity that on this day that I don't have too much going on, that this could fall apart and I have all the things in order versus another time when I have another,
Thing or something
obligation.
important
else
going on.
going on,
Exactly. Yeah.
So what are
it
you going
worked
to be
out.
intentional about your upcoming week after all of that?
Just being more in grace,
Yeah.
being more
Yeah.
in flow, and
Yeah.
just acceptance.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like
for sure.
things are gonna happen. It's probably happening for a reason, and who knows what this is protecting me from? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Because I would have been cussing.
Yeah, I was
the
I was
gods
pissed
and
at first.
everybody
I'm not
would've
gonna
called
lie.
me.
Yes.
But I got over it. I was like,
It's
you
one
know
of those
what?
things about unexpected expenses
Expenses.
too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it the car? Like
I think it's something about cars though. I have a very not really great history with car stuff. So
Yeah.
that would have really twisted my noodle, bro. Like
Yeah.
you're saying my
With the
first tire. Now
Yeah.
you're saying another tire is about to happen as well too. Like and
Right?
then now the insurance company is acting funny.
right?
Three
Right.
three
All the
strikes,
things.
everybody's out.
So, Something that challenged me this week, and Tyler know about, is that I had to change. I'm doing a workshop, but I had to adjust to a different date, and I went back and forth around it. And I don't know, a part of me was annoyed with myself that I had to change it, and also recognizing that it was also for the best that I had to change
Right.
it. And I realized about myself that when it comes to I hold myself to this hard accountability around if I made a commitment, if something is supposed to start out, and I literally was like, okay, what happened? Why did you did you do that part? And then also realizing that I think for me, it took me a while. Honestly, it wasn't until yesterday and maybe Thursday and Friday, I was like, okay, no, this is a good thing. This is giving more time for this. But before, it was I was in my head about
Did you
Like
feel
what
like
that
judging
means?
myself.
What does that mean?
Just really judging myself around it. And I'm like, but it's what David was talking about. Now I think about it. It's the idea of the ego, kind of
Right.
how that
Imagine
plays a
having to
role.
have a group tomorrow from 10 to 12.
That's after the day.
After
That's
the
what. That's
day,
exactly
after-
what I was
yeah, it
thinking.
wasn't meant to be.
It wasn't meant to be and that's what moving into next week. Something I've kind of been intentional about is just literally taking each day as is.
Yeah.
And I find that sometimes we try to plan ahead, or at least I try to plan ahead, and I'm like, nah. And I'm like, and I think that's part of stillness. It's just really going into a day as if it's literally a clean slate and a new day. So I'm being intentional about every day being my clean slate and my new day. And kind of
Yeah.
I love that.
working on that.
Okay.
All right. So I've talked about DJ, but let me give a bio. Let me read the bio real quick. DJ is the CEO of Spiritual Gems. He is a storyteller, a seeker, an advocate for personal growth, with the deep passion for healing, mindfulness, which we love here, and transformation. He blends lived experience with spiritual modalities such as astrology, human design, empathy, intuition. I also say a little bit of counseling. I think he might have a different type of calling. That's just my addition on there, but he's not a licensed professional counselor yet. And he also is just facilitating healing around others. And DJ has been he started on a journey, I think personally, that's really been about connecting people to their truth and living their natural state of self, what that looks like, and also really challenging and taking a sense of spirituality and just having tough conversation with yourself and challenging perspective and inspiring people to just transform into their best self, whether it's through speaking engagements, collaboration, personal reflection, doing our podcast. He's just committed to just guiding others to self-discovery and resilience. And what's a bonus for me is that he is my cousin.
Hey.
So I personally have seen his transformation and his journey, and just thought that just the way that the work that you've been doing specifically with males, and normalizing vulnerability in males is something that I started to admire. Because I was scrolling the Instagram a couple years ago. I was like, wait, what are we doing? Okay. I was like, can we talk some more? And I watched your YouTube clips. He also you could catch him on YouTube. He does these live, just these different lives that he does around different topics and things that's relating to healing and connection. So,
Yeah.
yes, DJ.
Yeah, what a
Welcome,
wonderful
DJ.
intro.
Welcome to the
Thank you.
couch.
Glad to be here. Honestly, thank you all.
So tell
Really
us a
appreciate
little
it.
bit more about one, like your journey. What called you to do the work that you do?
A lot of suffering, I guess. A lot of
Sure.
pain, a lot of emotional pain. I think that I felt like one of those people that almost felt blocked in life.
Yeah.
Every time I would try to do something or make something happen, it just wouldn't work out. I think I had a lot of feelings of abandonment, growing up in my childhood, and not having my dad around and stuff like that. Having like a lot of trauma, like early death of family members that I was attached to. Just a lot. A lot has happened in my
Yeah.
life, and so. Yeah, I think I was lost for a really long time and just finally gave in and said, you know what, I just need to surrender and figure this out, I think what really started the journey, after I graduated from college, because I was a little bit of an older student, again, while in
Not
young
here,
days.
same here. You know we are.
You know how that goes. And I think it just, awakening kind of happened around me not really feeling great. I was working like 2 jobs. And I would eat out all the time. So I was like basically having fast food damn near 3 times a day. And so I put on like weight. And, I held my weight pretty well because I'm
Yeah, I was about to
relatively
say.
tall or lanky. So, I didn't look crazy, but it was just, I didn't feel great. And so I don't know what happened, but one day I randomly was on YouTube while I was working because I like to multitask. Gemini Moon mine. Shout out to my Gemini Moons, And so I stumbled on a Dr. Sebi video. And then like what he said just resonated with me instantly. And at that time, I think what was really going on as I was kind of like looking into like world history, Black history, like trying to find the truth about that and understanding, where we come from and things like that. So that kind of started the awakening process. I stumbled onto Dr. Sebi and completely changed the way that I ate after that. Kind of went cold turkey from the meat for a while. And that kind of just started my ascension process. And so it's just kind of been a journey from there.
And how has it evolved since that?
Oh, wow. I think so. I'm a person that I operate in extremes. So like, I found out, things about our food system. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not eating.
Never
any
eating
meat
that again.
anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so I like stopped for a long time, and then I kind of like gave in and said, you know what? Like,
Balance.
it's about balance. You know what I'm saying? And so,
Because you did a whole talk on that, so that's why I was.
yeah. It's but it took me kind of like realizing that, sorry, vegans, like some of the stuff that we eat isn't that great for
It's
us.
not.
Because we're not necessarily eating like whole plant-based foods, and even the foods that we do get from these organic places, I don't want to call names of stores, but their stuff isn't that great. And so we're really not getting the nutrients that we used to get many years ago before the soils were completely ravaged of its nutrients and stuff like that, because they're just doing everything for
Profit.
Quick
profit. Thank you.
profit.
And
Yeah.
so it's just about quick turnover, right? So like this veggie looks great, but you're I saw something on Instagram or something like that once. I don't know if this is true, but it basically said that like the spinach that we had maybe about 40, 50 years ago had more iron and other nutrients in it. In comparison
spinach
today, it's
today.
like dropped something like 40%
Yes.
over
Yeah.
time.
Wow.
That
Yeah.
would make a lot of sense, and why
So-
a lot
Yeah.
more people are anemic, and they will tell you, "Oh, change your diet, change your diet," and it's like, yeah, you
what?
can change your diet, but the things aren't actually giving you as
What you
much
need.
of the
Exactly.
things
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you're having to eat a lot more of that same thing to get the same equivalent. And so our food is trash. And anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always know when I go to other places and I'm like,
What it is,
our,
yeah.
our fruit is fake. I know it.
But you know,
This
it's
pineapple
also-
tastes completely different.
But,
It
you know,
looks
what-
different and everything.
what David and I in our family talk about is that when we go back home and the difference in our like our daily is just our daily life. Like when we go, there's a sense of energy we have. Our body's not sluggish. Our quality of life, that's what I was looking for. Our quality of life changed because everything is natural.
Yeah.
Just the minute we touch down, our skin, everything
Yeah.
is just lighter.
Yeah.
And then we transform to the state. It's like It's like a letdown that
I
happened.
literally think about when I went to Nigeria, or even when you do go to other places
Yeah.
and come back, my skin feels dry.
yeah.
And I didn't notice it like when I was younger, but as I get older, like there's a certain like suppleness
Reaction.
that is in the
Yes.
skin. But like you said, the food,
Yeah.
the meats, like they are
Yeah.
growing the chickens, and the
everything.
goats, the pigs, the
Everything.
things. Like they're feeding
Yeah.
them with the food that they're also eating themselves. Like there
Exactly.
isn't like a separation
Yeah,
where
there's
they're
not
going
a
to get
steroid or
scraps
stabbing or
or any
something
of those
coming
type
of
of
it.
things. So when
Yeah.
you eat that food, it's nourishing your body, but also we talk about like a lot of walking communities.
Yeah.
So like it's in, if you want, you just walk around. Like that's just part of the thing. That's why a lot of people, when they go to Europe, they tend to like lose
Right.
quote unquote weight because it's a walking
Yeah.
culture. Like
Yeah.
they just walk everywhere.
Exactly.
They eat all the carbs, they eat all the butter, but that's being burned. And it also, the quality of those
quality of
things
those
is a
things.
lot
Than-
different
than
than
the
over
ones
here.
Yeah, and certain foods are banned from different countries.
Oh,
because they're
that we
bad.
still
yeah.
literally be
Still
giving
allowed,
to
They're
everybody.
like,
Yeah.
please give it more.
That's
Yes.
right.
Yes.
But what about your spiritual journey? Because that's really what kind of grounds you and continues
Yeah.
you.
Oh man, where do I even begin with that? That's something that's always ever evolving and
Yeah.
changing. I don't even really remember where it all kind of began outside of that's everything and where that transitioned next. I'm like trying to think of like how it transitioned, but yeah, it's just been I would say just self-exploration.
Yeah.
You know, I've always been like I love to learn new things,
Yeah.
and so when something resonates with me, I'll kind of just absorb it, take it in, and just kind of dive deeper into that. That's like a little bit of my inner nerdiness. And so yeah, it's kind of just use
Curiosity,
that.
I would
So
say.
I've
Yeah, I
learned
needed to learn
from
more.
all types of people, but when I got more serious about the journey a few years ago, I went. Shout out to Professor Melanie. She created a university for people in the metaphysical space.
Yeah.
And so I went to Spiritual Ascension University, and we did some training about different modalities, astrology, numerology, and many more things. And so that kind of gave me even more of a stronger foundation in those areas.
Okay.
And I use it now, what I practice. But yeah, spirituality is something that is just innate to me now. Something I think that was always there in its own way, and it evolved. It started with Christianity, which many of us in the West kind of start off with, I guess. And now I have a more like open, more fluid flowing spirituality
Yeah.
that I just practice, and so it's a lot of meditation.
Yeah.
A lot of like breath work. A lot of mindfulness practices.
Yeah.
I don't practice somatics, but I've had I've done I've had Reiki healings.
Right. So like,
Man, I've done so many things.
Well, and also, if you think about it, do you work out?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
of course.
technically, you do
That-
somatic stuff in that way if you're
That's
being
true.
mindful and
Yeah.
intentional.
That's
In
true.
those
That's
ways,
true.
people forget. That's why I think a lot of men like working out and enjoy and
With that
call that their
stress.
therapy because that is a way to kind of tap into the
Yes.
body in
Yeah.
a socially
Well said,
acceptable
yes.
manner.
Very
Yeah.
true.
Right.
Very
I
true.
also, had a question about like you talked about surrender before, about like having to deal with a lot of suffering and a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And how do you think that you suffering and surrendering and then finding or being more grounded in your spirituality may have changed your identity?
change or improve.
I would just because you know what we had a previous conversation that we had episode where we talked about identity and how like is it inherent or is it something that changes or evolves over time based on our experiences. So
Yeah.
I guess I'm wanting to speak a little more to that.
See, I think what happens when you begin to heal is you become more authentically who you truly are, right? Like we grow up in this Western society where you kind of have to behave in a certain way to be accepted. You know what I mean? It kind of starts with our parents and stuff like that and moves on. And we kind of carry a lot of that stuff, from childhood into our adulthood. And it's just mirrored in a bunch of different ways. And so I would say it's really allowed me to be more of myself, which is closer to God, right? Like, I'm more of a loving individual. I think for a long time I was I hated my heart sometimes because of how kind I was, because you know sometimes you get hurt, right? And sometimes you're doing too much.
Yeah.
And so, you know, dealing with rejection wasn't a really good feeling. And obviously, you know, growing up without my dad really being around like that kind of created that rejection really early. So, yeah, I would say how it's changed me is just allows me to be more fearless in my way of being, of loving unconditionally.
Yeah.
And it's still a process. I haven't perfected it, nor that I think anyone can, but I'm getting better at being more unconditional for love for myself first, and then that allows me to show that to others.
Yeah.
Okay, good to you.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into our confession.
All right, let's hear from the people.
Let's see what they're talking about.
I often feel I'm standing on the edge of something, an awakening maybe, but just as easily a descent into madness. There's this pull towards spirituality, towards something deeper, more connected, more real. But every time I get close, I hesitate, because the feeling that comes with it, oneness, euphoria, energy flowing through me, the sense of being awake, they feel too much like mania, the psychosis, the times that I've lost myself completely. I want to let go. I want to surrender to it, but I'm terrified. My mental health has been stable for a while now, and I'm grateful for that. But what if I open that door and I can't close it? What if I fall too far? What if the thing that could set me free is the same thing that could break me? Has anyone else felt this? This push and pull towards enlightenment and sanity. The fear of letting go, even when something inside of me knows there's more.
So let's first maybe start by talking about the difference between a manic episode, like mania, and what it seems like spiritual enlightenment, or like they say the beginnings of a spiritual awakening, right?
Yeah.
So for us that are therapists, right, mania is an episode that lasts for up to like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
With a person where they are feeling increased energy, lack of need to sleep.
Yep.
Also feelings of grandiosity. I can do anything. I can
Yep.
be everything. I'm the best at anything. What are some other things that you have seen with other people?
A little bit more reckless. I'm gonna spend more money. I'm gonna live this more like YOLO lifestyle.
There's like a dopamine driven kind of
Yeah.
experience, sex, drugs.
Based
Yeah,
on
and
how
some
you
people may
feel.
have some hallucination, it's just depending on the level of their.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there's hallucinations in terms of seeing things
Seeing
that are
things.
either visually or
Yeah,
experiencing
or pushing
things
them
in
to
the
do
body.
things or hearing things that tell them, hey, go for it.
Right.
Because that's where.
But even as you guys are describing that, DJ, what are your thoughts about how that can perhaps sound similar to someone having this
some
spiritual awakening?
Does it sound similar?
I'm not gonna lie. Some of the things that you guys are mentioning actually sound like a good time. You know?
That's what I mean.
And that's exactly
Somebody's
why
living
people
life,
who are
YOLO?
manic,
Yeah.
they enjoy that time for
Yeah.
the most part and don't want to give it up. So yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess well, everything has its limits, right?
Right.
Yeah.
If you're becoming a danger to yourself, I guess that would be an issue. But some of the things you guys mentioned, I'm like, oh, this actually sounds like somewhat of a good thing. Like you're living life, you're exploring
Exactly.
your passions, you're being more present in the moment. You're going off of your some in a healthy way. You want to go off of your emotions, or in your heart space rather. And so some of that sounds good, but if you're doing it to your detriment, right? Like you're not doing it with discipline, you're not doing it with a matter of balance and control,
Yeah.
then that can be a huge issue and it can harm you. I know that spiritually, even when you're taking maybe like doing something like mushrooms, like that's something I do sometimes.
Yeah.
I microdose to kind of get more in alignment with myself, have more introspective or deeper thought, or to work through maybe something I need to look at more seriously. But if you overdo it, sometimes you can, hallucinate, right? If you take a larger dose of that thing. And I think that sometimes people could take that too far and lose themselves in
The euphoria of
in
it
the
all.
euphoria
Yeah.
of it all, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you just have to do everything with balance, is what I'd have to say to that. But yeah, I think it's also important though for us to again be more present, live in the moment, right? But with balance, understand that there's consequences for every action. But live your life fearlessly. Like, some of that actually sounds somewhat healthy.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
so I think that
here's
we
the
want
thing.
to point that out. Go ahead.
Right, because here's the part that I think that I kind of tend to struggle with situations like this with clients, because technically, since we're talking about Western culture, is that sometimes people can be having a spiritual awakening that can be viewed as psychosis. I think that's the labeling that they end up putting on it,
Right.
that the person is having a psychosis. I think for this particular person, I think because of their learning history around going into mania
or just
and
the
having a
attachment to the
manic episode,
language.
and also the fact that connecting with a higher sense of self. And I think maybe sometimes I think some language, because they have a therapist, I'm sure they've gotten, that we have used, can make people question their sense of connection and who they are,
Like
because
what they're actually
experiencing. Because we got to think about spirituality is very multifaceted, as you agree, in a sense of that, and I know in Christian culture that sometimes when the Holy Spirit does hit you, when you are having that spiritual connection and you feel like the power of something does come over you, someone who's not connected to the faith, or someone who even they may be Christian but they may be of different, they're not of the,
Like a
of the
different
culture that
denomination,
you come from, of
They're practicing
experiencing
something different.
of the practicing, they may think like, oh, they're schizophrenic or they're mania or they're this, when really it's just a spiritual awakening that they're having. So I think that's the problem also when it comes to our field, is not really honoring certain parts and quick to diagnose or say someone is this, because then we start making people questioning how to really connect to a deeper part of themselves, or even I believe in ancestral connection, because the thing about it is also is as a people, indigenous people also, is that certain things in your life due to experiences may start happening to you. If you struggle with mental illness, that may appear, that can kind of confuse you, but an awakening can come to you around that.
I think it can
And
be
trusting
difficult,
that.
right? Because we
Yeah.
do live in a society where a lot of some culturally appropriate things can be pathologized.
Yeah.
So I've certainly had experiences with clients who have had this specific situation. I had a client who believed that a parent of hers was performing spiritual warfare on her. And so that was really difficult for me as the therapist, really trying to hold space for her to explore that in a way that was not accusatory, that and in a way that didn't come off as like, you have to convince me as the client to believe you. I think that gets in the way of people really being able to use therapy in an open forum and really just being able to sort through their stuff.
Yeah.
But so working
Coming from that assumption of I have to now convince my therapist as well that this is happening to me, instead of this is happening to me and I feel wild about it. You know, I was trying to, so I think that our relationship worked well because I didn't put pressure on her to not feel that way
Yeah, 'cause
or not
somebody else
believe
might have
that.
even shut
I
down.
kind of just took it from
Started
oh, well,
challenging
what
it.
does that mean to you?
Because some theoretical orientations will have you challenged because that's
Yeah.
the inherent framework. CBT would challenge that because
Yeah.
it's a belief. But I guess I want to go back a little bit because again, I'm a little removed from the spiritual sense and the ways that you guys are connected.
I feel like you think that you are.
think you're
I'm saying it.
So no
it's my
offense.
truth. So that's what I'm saying. I'm a
Okay,
bit more
no
removed
problem.
from you guys are. But
She
my
would like to think so.
question about it is what is spiritual awakening? Because I think that's even more of why this person is confused. Because if you think about it, from all the movies that I've seen around Christianity and Catholic, but mostly Christianity, to be honest, in Black movies, somebody who's having a spiritual awakening, it's not theatrics, but there's a thing. You're speaking in tongues. Your body's moving in this way. So it's in order to I guess legitimize or think that you're having a spiritual awakening. Is it supposed to look like that? Am I supposed to? Because I'm not gonna lie. When I was growing up, and a Catholic church is much different than Christian church. It's very sterile. It's very this, and this.
Yeah.
For real.
But I
It's
also
very
think
much you
Catholicism
gonna.
in different countries are different.
It's different, but
Yeah.
here it's an hour. You know exactly what the things are
You're
going to
in
be,
and
and
out.
you're in and
Yep.
you're out. But when you go to someone who's Baptist or someone who's
Or
in
Popsicle and all these other
exactly.
ones, yeah.
It's completely like I've seen people. They're running or they're doing these things. You can feel the joy, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, like I want to be part of it. Is
Experience
this
that, yeah.
something that I'm supposed to experience in order to say that
Yeah, have a spiritual
I'm having an
awakening,
awakening? So it's like my question is like, what is an spiritual awakening? How do you know you're experiencing one?
That's a great question. It looks different for everyone.
Yep.
It is not a one size fits all thing.
Agreed.
And I love the point that you brought up that a lot of what we know about spirituality are things that have been projected onto us
Exactly.
by media, old religious beliefs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so, honestly, spirituality can look different for me, you, anybody else, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, look at me. Like, I consider myself a spiritual person, but I'm not necessarily dressing in, like, you know, all white gowns with a
Yeah.
head wrap
Yeah.
and ankh on me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those are no disrespect to anyone that does
Who
that,
does
but that's
that,
just
yeah.
not my form of spirituality.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, what is a spiritual awakening? I think any time that you are at a moment or at a point where you've had enough and you are willing to make the changes or do self-discovery to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's when you're at the point of you're
Yeah.
about to awaken. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
you've been meeting resistance in your life in a lot of different ways, and you're just tired of it. And at that point, you begin to say, okay, cool, I need to change. And that's when you experience an awakening.
So
Well-
I may be hearing, DJ, that spiritual awakening is really like a awakening or reconnecting to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so I'm gonna ask you this question, DJ, and everybody, answer it. Is that some people argue that spirituality has become like a trend or a form of escapism rather than like true self work? Because we're talking about awakening, right?
Right.
So, do you see that being truth?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk
There's
about
a
that.
lot of fake. Listen.
Say it. Just say it.
Fake
DJ,
prophets,
you can
fake-
say
fake-
it.
There's a lot of
Spirituality.
fake spiritualists out here, people who are faking the funk
Yeah.
to jump on a trend to make money off
Yeah.
of this thing. They're selling you products, they're selling you things,
Classes.
images,
Yes.
telling you what
Yes.
you want to hear in order
Yes.
to, take advantage of you. And, because we come from the society that doesn't teach us to recognize these things and to understand how powerful our intuition is and discernment is, and what true discernment is.
Yeah.
Some of us can kind of get sucked into it because I think a lot of us are looking for saviors in a lot of ways. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of snake oil salesmen who are
Salesmen.
willing to play that role. Like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'll
Yeah.
I'll pretend to help you.
I'm glad that you said that because unfortunately, I think that is also something that can show up in the therapy realm.
Yes.
Yeah.
There are unfortunately a lot of therapists out here who are perhaps practicing for that reason, that savior feeling, or like I can fix people rather than like
Which is not our job.
the perspective of I'm supporting people and figuring out how to fix themselves.
And especially when you're fixing people, you're going to fix them from the perspective of what
you.
you think that they need
Yeah.
and not from the perspective of their soul requires.
Yeah.
So like you said, there's a difference between doing the solo work as a means to get deeper and closer to myself, to feel that security, that belonging that comes with me. And I guess saying that I'm doing it so other people like pat me on the back about
Right.
it, or other people I make other people feel badly for their lack of spirituality, because I find that a lot in
a lot of shame.
there is a
hoteps.
lot of people who put down other people because they're not religious enough, they're not praying enough, they're not giving enough money,
Yeah.
they're not doing all of these things
Yeah.
as a requirement to be I guess like I don't know, a requirement to get the community in the church, as a requirement to the gates of heaven, like all of these things
Spirituality.
that make it hard for a person who has trauma or has things to even want to buy into something like that.
Yeah.
Here's what I think, and y'all may disagree, but I'm gonna say, people fucking idolize things too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
I think that's where it becomes like a mockery when it comes to spirituality, is that we take these things as like absolute truth and we idolize them. One thing I can appreciate about my spiritual faith is that God, you shouldn't have any idols. You shouldn't be looking up and worshiping like certain statues or things, or depending on this one stone, this one thing to heal you, because healing is actually within. It's a you work. It's not your pastor can heal you. It's not your
Right.
your
No matter how many
James can
crystals
heal
you
you.
got on
Yeah, it's
this
not
week,
that.
it's
You
not.
could read 50
Big
self-help
facts.
books. Go to all these. A lot of people who go
Empowerment
to all
brunches.
these
Workshops,
workshops and
ayahuasca ceremonies.
Yeah.
I got 10
Like-
different
right, or the
therapists.
readings
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
people
So
do.
yeah, so I just feel like people get caught up in just wanting to just attach themselves to something when really that you are the
Yeah.
attachment, that spirituality that you should be attaching to.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it become a form of escapism of true work, is that, which goes into the identity piece conversation we have around that wanting to belong and not really starting to understand that part of belonging is acknowledgement of self. I am worthy. I am enough. And then once I get to the I am worthy, I am enough, whatever spiritual upbringing that I grew up with or whatever that was put on me, let me explore that
attach
and
that
see
in a healthy
how
way.
that connect with
Yeah.
me. Because I grew up Catholic as well, and it wasn't my religion, Lord Heavenly Father. I was not. Okay, me and Catholicism was just there. There was no connection. And even when I got older and I explore all faith, Hinduism, I literally did. I'm like David and I. We have the same birthday, but I am someone. If I don't know, I would go ham on educating myself.
Yeah.
And I read the Quran. I read everything, and the common theme was around believing there's a higher being than just yourself, but you yourself are a being of healing. I don't care which one of them books you read. All of them literally had the same theme, and nobody can challenge me on that. And for me, it's just me and God. And it's always going to be me and God, not me and God in the church that I go fellowship in. It's not me and God about what this pastor said. It's me and God in the Bible.
I think that's your distinguishment too
Yeah.
between like what your spirituality and spiritual connection is and religion.
Exactly.
Those being different things, they can often be.
But let's talk
Conflated.
about that. Go ahead. I
I don't
see
even
you
gotta say
burning.
nothing. Y'all cooking right now.
I see you
I'm just sitting
burning.
here like,
But
yup,
like, what is religion and what is spirituality?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Religion is the practice of you connecting with God, source, creator.
Yeah.
Right? It's a
Yeah.
it's a spiritual discipline. And it allows you, it does have a subset of, or sorry, not a subset, but some rules that allow you to learn how to communicate with the divine.
Yeah.
Which has been hijacked throughout history in order to control the
Oppress.
masses and to suppress people,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people, even myself at moments, kind of, was very anti-religion. And this is a
Religion.
part, and this is also, by the way, a part of the awakening process. You're going to have
Talk about
moments where, again, you're going to kind of like villainize the systems and the things and judge the very people that judged you, right?
Exactly.
So it's just like, so one of the things like people do in the spiritual community, because we were talking about this earlier,
Yeah.
is like, oh, those low vibrational people,
Yeah.
I hate that.
right? Let's just like,
I hate hearing someone else call someone else low vibrational.
That's some
That is low
vibrational shit.
vibrational.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Exactly.
That within
That's
itself.
operating in judgment. Right?
Right.
And, don't get me wrong. I used to say shit like that too
Yeah.
early on in my journey, because the
Yeah.
the process. And so I realized that, like,
Yeah.
like, this is how karma works. If you
Yeah.
judge anything harshly, you're gonna judge yourself even more harshly.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
this is how this works in order to get you to realize, like, oh, I need to operate more in grace for myself. And when you do that, you're able to operate more in grace for others. They're where they're
others,
at because
yeah.
that's where they need to be until they're ready to make the change.
Yeah.
Right? And you just let that go and let them be, let them live their life. And that's what true unconditional love is, right? Like, people talk about, oh, I want love and I want unconditional love, but you got to understand, like, love is unconditional. When God says he or she loves you unconditionally, that means that if you're a drug addict, that means if
Yeah.
you're a sexaholic, that
Whatever
means
it
if
is, it's
whatever you're going
unconditional.
through,
Yeah.
God is gonna love
Yeah.
you through it, right?
Yeah.
No matter what you've done, no matter who you did what to, right? And this is, to me, the quintessential point of us coming here as human beings is to learn how to love ourselves unconditionally. And by
Yeah.
doing that, we change the world, and we're able to allow people to move in the way that they need to in order
Yeah.
to reach their own level of enlightenment. But that's what
Yeah.
enlightenment means to me. You had
So-
an original question. I kind of lost it. What
No,
was the
you
question?
no, that was part of it around like, is it spirituality or is it, a trend of like escapism? But I'm gonna switch it up a little bit, and I'm gonna say this: we're spiritual, but what about science? Some people are atheists. Some people believe that it's science, and some people believe it's spirituality. Is there a
See,
difference
Some
in
people are
definition?
undecided. I think
Some
for
people are
myself
undecided.
personally, I feel undecided often. Like I think that I feel more in tune with myself more than ever at this point in my life. But I do get I've received a lot of conflicting information based on the like religious upbringing that I had. And the religious upbringing that I was a part of did not really cultivate self connection.
Yeah.
It cultivated connection with other people and like conformity. So that was a struggle for me to like be able to separate the idea of spirituality from that religious practice.
Yeah.
So I think it took me a long time to kind of figure out where I stand, and I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah.
Like it's an
Yeah. It's
ongoing
ongoing.
process. It's a little bit of like, okay, I like these practices,
Yeah.
but I'm a little bit weary about this, and
Yeah, because
getting some
religious trauma is
firsthand
real.
research.
Yeah.
Firsthand research is so important. Like
Yeah.
I'm not getting my
Yeah.
information from TikTok videos. Like
No.
I might see that video and then say I need to go to the source
Yeah.
and really learn more and understand more for myself.
Yeah.
Experience, practice, not just taking the word of someone else. And that's where that idolizing comes in. People
Yeah.
see what it is that they want to be in someone else, and they decide I need to perform or act in that way so that I can also feel that same awakening. But they don't work like that.
That's true.
Science and spirituality.
I mean, science and I that nature versus nurture conversation has always been interesting because science could be seen as another version of the source of those type of like
Agreed.
things. So it's like there's less of a separation of that in my opinion. But what I was thinking about goes back to what DJ was saying about like in your spiritual awakening being going through like the villainizing stage, and I've definitely been in that stage for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And I think it went from villainizing it to just like a sense of just apathy and just like straight up just like separate, like I'm just not, that's just not my thing.
Yeah.
That's not, and I find this like discomfort sometimes that goes in when like thinking about like religion, religion specifically. Spirituality is a little bit different, but religion, when I think about that, it really brings me back to beliefs that I had.
Yeah.
And how I could not separate religion from my culture. Like it's literally the same thing, that like
Yeah.
oppressive feeling of you have to do this, and if you don't,
Yeah.
you're being condemned. Like the belief system, if I'm really being fair, is that I'm going to hell. Like that's the thing, the thought that I have underlying, and I've always thought that about like, oh, you did this, it's done.
I'm on the path
You're
already.
there's nothing that I can do.
And that's how I
to-
felt about Catholicism.
Yeah, I was
I felt
destined
like
for
if-
hell.
look.
Every move I made.
Yeah, like I'm about to go to hell. And I
Like,
told
and
my
it's
mother, I was like,
continued to-
I lied, so I'm going to hell again.
So no, I feel, and that's the thing. I continue to, and it's like it's ingrained. It's like it's an
Yeah.
actual belief that I
Yeah.
have about myself. And like you said, there's things. Not only if we judge somebody else, we'll judge ourselves tenfold because we have the rolling reel of all the discrepancies that
Yep.
we've done, especially when, at least again, Catholicism was all about the things that you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
My culture was all about the
They
things that
didn't
you
build
shouldn't
about
be doing. So like
relationship.
all you
They
think
didn't talk about
is,
relationship.
oh, like I know there's the Old Testament, I know there's a New Testament, but I can generally only think about like, oh, I'm going to be punished.
Right.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
literally
And
the
the New
only thing
Testament
that
don't
I'm thinking.
even
It's like
focus
I'm
on
gonna
that.
be punished
Yeah.
in that way. So there is a kind of like wanting to escape from that
Right.
feeling of like
Yeah.
doom,
Yeah.
from my
sure.
perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's so deep, and I think a lot of people feel exactly the way that you feel. And that's a common struggle, I think, with people who realize that these some of these ideas or tropes that come with religion aren't really in alignment with them. And it's just like, I'd never forget, if I could share a personal story.
Yeah, please.
I was in college. I was in Florida, partying all the time. Had roommates with my brothers for life. One time, so we used to go out drinking all the time, like damn near every night. And one night we just got into a deep conversation. I don't even know how, but the conversation was, you know, they were Christian, and I was too. But it was a question of like, if you don't accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, you're going to hell. Like this is we operate in like straight extremes, right? Like,
That's the belief that was pushed up
that's
to me
usually
as well.
what's taught, right? And so I was like, yo, that makes no sense to me, right? There's something didn't resonate with that, right? Like even being a Christian, you know what I'm saying? Because they always say God is love, but it's only in certain areas and conveniences, right? If you're conditions, right? If you're operating and behaving in a certain way.
The Bible, as you and I know, says unconditioned. There's no condition.
There you go.
But just good.
So at the time, I don't know why this is coming to me right now. At the time, there was like something on the news about they discovered this new tribe in the Amazon that hadn't been around other outside society in how many years, and so like they're just showing them like with spears and like a helicopter and like getting ready to like pounce on them. And I was thinking to myself like, okay, cool, those people have never met a missionary. You know what I'm saying? They haven't been born or raised in this religion. So you're telling me they're going to hell
Right.
because they didn't meet Jesus.
Right.
And you know,
That's the assumption,
my
right?
roommate's offer was like, yeah, they're going to hell. That's what I believe. I'm like, ain't no way. I was just like, well, this is not the God that I would choose to serve.
Right.
And love.
Yeah.
That's
And
the
yes,
case, you know
and
what I'm
that
saying?
and that used and things like that used to twist me because my villainism started when I lost my sister. Because in my mind as a young child, I'm like, the way that they like talked about God and the things, it's like, why would you allow my sister to experience the amount of pain that she did? Why do you allow her to die? Why did you allow my family to like feel these things? Like I was so angry, like so mad and so hurt about these things. At that time I was like, what is the point in believing in something that would like
Do something.
That will do
Cool.
something
Cause
like
that
that.
harm.
Yeah.
Like that's cool.
But I think,
It feels cool,
and I
yeah.
think that's the part that, you know, people unfortunately stumble upon, but don't spend time to explain to us. And I think that's where our parents, I think, might have faltered, is that I remember, and I'm sure all of us were like, they tell you to pray for everything, but they didn't help you understand what the prayer was for, what the power of that for, what is the meaning of that. And I think I had to learn that on my own, that what is the purpose of prayer and what it serves, instead of like praying on everything, and also understanding. I don't think they didn't normalize not having answers. I think they gave you answers to quiet you down.
Right.
And not really letting you know that there's certain things that there is no answer. And I think that was a detriment, I think personally, around that is not make I do. I think that's the part that kind of really mess it up. But I think situations like this is, I think, what also strays people away from spirituality, from God, from connecting themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, you know, it's very mindful around like who you occupy yourself for. Like your roommates, they were taught that. So I wonder how much misery and limitation they put on themselves because they feel like they can't live, they can't do this because they're trying to avoid hell so bad. They're trying to do, and not really, people forget about the importance of the relationship. Because I think as Christians, they want you to memorize. They want you to memorize. They want you to know. But God always said, go back to having a relationship. Spirituality is having a relationship with self, having a relationship with a higher sense of being. And I wonder how much did they take away from that relationship and just trying to live with a law that didn't understand.
So here's what I want to say. That this is a great time, I think, to talk about this. Human beings, we like to operate in duality. Everything is like good or bad.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right or wrong. Yeah.
All or
Heaven or hell,
nothing.
right or wrong. It's just like, dude, all of it exists.
Yep.
And the ability for you to do shadow work is to realize that you have shadows. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Can you talk about what that is a little bit?
So shadow work is basically diving deeper into yourselves and the things that you don't really want to face, or you have been pushing away, right? So what tends to happen is, or this is what I believe, your mind has a conscious and a subconscious.
Yeah.
Your subconscious, they say, is a very large portion. I don't remember the number, but I think it's like 10% is
tell you,
conscious,
but I know it's
90
yeah.
is subconscious, right? So I believe the subconscious is actually part of your divine self, right? We all have this, the darkness and light within us. You know what I mean? It's just what you choose to do with it at any given moment, right?
Yeah.
The things that I've been through, the hurt, the trauma, could make me a devil or it could make me an angel, right?
Yeah.
It's just all in the choices that you make. And so
Yeah.
to me, shadow work is doing the deep dive into yourself to discovering the things, the dark thoughts that you come in. So if you see someone and they have a nice outfit on and you're like, ugh, like you're hating on them
Right.
because of whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
there's something in you that has a belief system tied to something in your subconscious that
Yeah.
your subconscious is trying to show you through these negative, weird, warped,
Yeah.
angry thoughts.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just like the shadow work is diving into that and saying like, well, where does this come
Where'd that
from?
come from?
Yeah.
Why am I saying this, right? But what we tend to do, or what we learn to do, is just to suppress those things, right? And then what ends up happening is the more that you suppress these dark emotions, it's gonna show up in your life somehow.
Bigger
Exactly.
they get.
So one night you might get what's it called, pitch black drunk.
Yeah.
And then now you're hearing from your people that you did some crazy shit, like you were, breaking into people's cars or busting windows, and because you have so much anger build up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But in your real life, you're just always smiling, like, no, it's okay. Your boss is like taking advantage. Everyone in your life is taking advantage of you.
Right.
And so your subconscious is trying to tell you, like, hey, we're telling you through your dreams, we're telling you through these things that you need to face this darkness inside of you. You need to let go of the belief system. You need to stand up for yourself. You need to speak up.
Yeah.
So sorry, I know that kind of.
But
went
a lot of
little far,
people is going to be afraid of that process or afraid of
Yeah,
that process.
because
That's
what you,
like-
as
Of
you
what it
said, though,
reveals.
we all have shadows, but those shadows were locked away for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, like if I go back to like thoughts that I've had around like my identity or my past or things of that nature, right? Not wanting to see those things because of the guilt that it brought up
brings
because
up
it's
feelings.
not connected to my values. Also, the feeling of unfairness around the circumstances that set me up to show up that way.
Yeah.
But also like the very stark openness of like, or radical like accepting of like, this is who you are if you were put in this position. Like you said, that light and dark, right? Like accepting that if there were no consequences, you would do this thing, regardless of this idea of you being a good person. A good person, right, doesn't make any mistakes.
Yeah.
Doesn't take advantage of everything, works within the rules, right? A good person wouldn't steal
Right.
if
Right.
they had given the opportunity, right? So if you do it, you're gonna put it in that
the
shelf
bag.
all the way in the
Right.
back because
Right.
that doesn't sit with
Right.
who I am.
Yeah.
Right, or who I've been told I'm supposed to
there
be.
you go. And then, so it's based on belief systems that were projected onto us and we don't realize it, right? That really the reason why you want to steal something, it comes from something that you feel like you lack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And then when you, generally speaking, there's a bunch of reasons for that, why you lack that thing or why you feel like you lack that thing. But once you realize and you heal that and you face it and you say, well, I really don't lack this, right? Like, yeah, I might not be a millionaire, but am I eating tonight? Am I safe when I go to bed? Like, what are you really prioritizing in your life? But when you have these belief systems that you don't realize you're operating on or from, your subconscious is trying to tell you through these moments like, hey, we're trying to show you something and this is the best way for me to get you to see and face the thing. But again, what we're taught, like you said, is just like, oh, I got to be a good person. I have, because this is what it looks like, because we've been given what it looks like to be a good person.
Yeah.
The good person doesn't speak up. They don't rock the boat. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
They show up in love. I'm meek and I'm humble all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? I don't want to overshine anyone. You know what I'm saying? And like, no. You're here to shine. You're here to be your best version of self.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
when your subconscious is telling you, it's like, yo, you're not showing up, and we need you to show up for
Show up.
yourself. There's
Yeah.
something that you're missing. Like we're trying to show
Exactly.
you, and you're not getting it.
Yeah.
And so, to me, it's this is the part of spirituality that most people don't really dive into too much. It's like
Right.
always on some namaste shit, like
Right.
you know.
So
Which is
we gotta-
spiritual
we gotta-
bypassing. That's
Right.
really
You know,
spiritual
spiritual
bypassing,
bypassing.
essentially. Like
Yeah.
you're just doing the things. You're checking off the box.
And
You're
then-
not actually participating and committed. You're just
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna go to that yoga class and
Right.
Feels good.
Well, I
in
mean,
the
All right,
that was
so let me
also
cha-
cultural appropriation. That's
That
why
part-
that led to that
Piece.
namaste versus the actual
To
practice that goes
Right.
behind it.
All right. So for our listener, just wrapping this up before we get into our listening letter, is basically around if you feel like you're having a spiritual awakening, trust and lean on that, and also trust in your
Yeah.
body and knowing when it's your mental instability
Yes.
and not your, not you probably afraiding to embrace something that's different or that's been what I'm hearing all of us say that's
Yeah.
been categorized for you as something different.
Yeah, I was gonna
Okay.
say too that like in your spiritual awakening, you will also find that things that are not spiritually aligned for you will start to feel more and more egregious.
Exactly.
That thing that you previously accepted, you can't stand it. The
So
breathing,
exactly.
the movement around
Exactly.
it will be so like physically, I need to get away from this. That's usually how you can tell when I'm like
Right.
shifting away from something.
Good deal. All right. So let's move into our listening letter.
Okay.
All right.
My oldest son is in his late 20s, married, college educated, and working full time. And I've realized our relationship has shifted. We talk openly about politics, investments, religion, and personal matters with no real taboos. In many ways, he feels more like a peer now, which I never expected a decade ago. This got me thinking, how do relationships evolve as power dynamics shift? Whether it's with your parents, mentors, or younger people in your life, when do you start treating them as equals? Are there topics or barriers that should always be maintained, or is full transparency the best approach?
Yeah, I think full transparency is the best approach. Again, within boundaries. I think I don't know, want to speak for you guys, but I think people from our generation, generally speaking, we come from the era where our parents protected us from a lot of the things that was going on, and we appreciate some of that, right? Like, if they were having hard financial times, if they were, struggling with work, they suppressed a lot. You know what I'm saying? And so we kind of were shielded from a lot of the things that were going on in life, and so we looked at our aunts, our uncles, as the superiors in our life.
Sure.
And when you get older, you begin to see through the facade.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
didn't know what the fuck they was doing.
Yeah, they had no clue. And it's just like,
Yeah.
so I'll share this story. Hopefully my mom don't get mad at me. So my mother drives fast. She got a lead foot, right? And, so I got my first car. And, of course, I picked up on the habit.
Right.
So somebody saw me. I live, I'm from the Caribbean, so a small island. It's only like something like 84 square miles or something like that. Very small place, right? So I was speeding on the highway. Somebody snitched, told my mother, and they went off on me and they took the car, right? Mm-hmm. And so, it wasn't until we're having this conversation with me being much older, and she was like, I felt so bad doing that to you, taking your car away.
that's how
It's
she
like, I
felt.
know you got it from me, but I had to I'm like, that's so messed up. Like,
Right.
like, you yelled at me for like forever. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, but that's just a small example of just how it is,
No, but
right? Like
that's
we
the
look at
shift in it. Yeah.
our parents and like they have it all together, and they don't. They're just big children. Like we're all just children with money.
When they say like I'm just a girl. Like,
Yes. My first thing that I think about is I don't like the use of power dynamic. I don't.
Yeah.
That really shifts me in an odd way, and that's probably
There is a power
deep-rooted in my
dynamic,
own thing.
unfortunately, though.
But there is a power dynamic, but to think about it though in that way, how do relationships evolve as power dynamics shift? Is that how you're thinking? Do you think that you have power over your son and daughter with your mentor? Do you think that you have is that the
If
perspective that you're coming
If you
from?
look at Christianity, Yes. People are taught to look at children as lower than or less than.
Okay.
So there is a power dynamic of like, I know more than you. I've experienced life. I have the answers. That is reinforced in a lot
You
of
don't know what you're
cultural
talking
ways.
about.
True, that was
Yeah.
you're correct. But then, do they also have teachings about that transition from child to adult?
Not
because that is
really.
also a natural thing that happens.
Well, I sort of disagree with you on that one as it relates to Christianity. But yes, to
so
answer
the
your
question,
question,
they do, right?
They do.
So that's my like, I have a struggle with the thing of like, when you're talking about a mentor to a mentee, right? You guys have goals that you're working with together, right? Yes, there's a power dynamic in terms of knowledge and experience and these things, but that mentee also has rights, has
to
their
pour
own
back
things.
into
you.
Right.
To
So
pour
there
back-
is
it's
a cyclical,
it's a dual
transactional
relationship.
experience.
Yeah.
So to see it as a top down thing is already odd personally for
Same.
me, right? And I also think that there's both transparency within the realms of the relationship, right? Like
Yeah.
with a parent and a child, you guys can talk about things like, okay, like parenting, how, it could be discussions about like driving or about like chores and things of that nature. Now, mom and we can have a discussion about how you wanted me to do the dishes for this amount of time, but my brother, you allowed him to do this. So with my children, I'm going to do this, that, and the third. I think that's, within the realms.
Appropriate.
Talking about maybe antics in the bedroom, I think
Yeah,
it
that's
really
what I'm
depends on the relationship
Yeah.
you already have
Or
with
even-
your parents, but like
Or
that's
even
not
stuff
something.
like the emotion piece, right?
Yeah.
Like parents putting too much of their emotional responsibility onto their kids, like oversharing what their experiences are without acknowledging how that is impactful to their children.
100%.
I think that's when those lines get blurred between like transparency and authenticity, and like I'm expecting my kid to take on my emotional baggage.
Or also like take it on in an adult way, but also
In a way that they're not prepared for, yeah.
be open to how like that person saying it's too much
Yeah.
or saying, oh mom, I don't like this, or dad, you made me upset. No,
Yeah.
you can't tell me you're upset. No, you can't be upset with me because
Yeah.
like that's not how a mother, like how do you make space for the maturity of emotions and of the relationship?
Well, for this particular person, I just commend you on the fact that you had this open relationship with your son. It didn't seem like he noticed that there was a power dynamic
Right.
because he was open and transparent through and through. So to me, I think it's interesting that it's coming to your attention now that when he should have shifted, when the truth is, I believe that there just need to be a balance, right? A balance when it comes to parenting, mentor, mentee, or whoever it is. Like we said, be mindful of who you look up to kind of be your end all, but also know you have a contribution. It seems like he believed his son had a contribution to him as much as he had a contribution
Right.
towards his son. So I don't think there's necessarily, in knowing a shifting, I always feel like children have observed more and they actually come with a set of genuine and give you permission to just be that adults don't come with, and I think that's how they
Yes.
contributed.
It's like raw,
Yeah, for
unvarnished
sure.
energy.
Exactly. So I do say transparency, but it can't be full transparency,
Right.
because there needs to be some sort of barrier and
Boundaries,
some
for sure.
boundaries around age appropriate one and what your kid can
Developmentally
take and do,
appropriate.
and the responsibility of what you put on them. So I think it just needs to be a balance of that. And kudos to you that the fact that your son did that and there was no discussion around it. And I also think I can't speak to this necessarily, but I think it's a difference with a father and son relationship compared to, I would have been curious to see if it was, or is that level of transparency if he had daughters, with their daughter. So I think
So we're talking about the politics, investments, religion, and personal matters with no real taboos. So it shows like even then they weren't talking about anything that's outside of maybe like established boundaries
Exactly.
with
Right.
them, with each other. And then also the question of like, what does equals mean
Yeah.
to you? Like,
Yeah.
is it, what are you saying, like, equals in terms of like what you talk to your age peer friends, or what you like in terms of opening, you're sharing more about
Right.
like
Yeah.
your thought
When
process?
I think about the way he's talking, it's like treating my son as if, you know, they're on the same wavelength as
Yeah.
me, and I'm not beneath or below them.
like a sense of
I don't
authority.
I don't even think I really picked up on beneath or below. I think that the power dynamic with parenting in the most healthy parenting situation, the power dynamics can sometimes just come from the fact of like your child needs you for something.
Yeah.
And you are the provider in that situation.
Exactly.
So that is a power,
power
dynamic
dynamic.
in the sense of like I have the thing that you need.
Exactly.
So when you
Making
do
the
no longer
provision
need
around-
your parents anymore
provide, to be
for
the
that
provision.
survival, then that is more like a level playing field around like we're both bringing the same things to the table.
and
I
then
got you.
acknowledging when
Yeah.
it comes to the same thing.
Yeah.
So you know that's why I tell Sophie, when I take you out to dinner, I don't always have to pay. 'Cause,
Okay.
girl, you got a job too. just
Yeah.
like I
No,
do.
but that's my aunts
So-
now. Still,
Yeah.
my aunts will still try to pay for me. I'm
Yeah.
like, y'all,
I got a
Listen,
job.
I'll
I can
take
treat
it.
you to dinner too.
Okay.
Like-
But it's also, but now I think, now that you said that, it's about like at what age do you stop going to your parents for something?
I
though?
think
It
it's you
depends
go,
on
you
you and the
stop
relationship with
going
the
when
parent.
you
Yes.
when you build those skills.
Skills,
And
exactly.
sometimes people don't build those skills, and they
skills.
forever have that power struggle between them and their parents because
Yeah.
they have not built that skill of independence or like whatever that is needed for their own survival.
All right, this was so good.
It
DJ, so
was.
good to have you. Hopefully,
Thank
you're going
you,
to come
guys.
back
Appreciate it, of
with
course,
us.
anytime.
How can people reach you,
how can-
DJ?
Yep.
Instagram
Spiritual
underscore gems with an S. You can find me on YouTube, Spiritual Gems Podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah, check him out.
Yes. All
Thank
right,
you.
ladies. This was
Appreciate it.
good.
Yes, it
and I
was.
appreciate it. Have a good one, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.